Relaxing. Is
Well,
everyone?
at least we do have a quorum, so we can proceed with it. Looks like we've got another minute though before 7:30, so we have a little bit of time before we call the board to order. How's everyone doing? Everyone staying safe and sane?
Brian.
Come here. And I have my admin assistant with me tonight.
Hello there.
That
He's come in
Are you
for a
babysitting?
visit. He doesn't usually come in and annoy me when I'm in my office, but for some reason tonight he seems needy, so that's all right. We'll let him come in and give him a scritch before the meeting.
That's okay.
is it a cat?
Yep, this is Winston. He's our younger cat, I should say. He's 7 or 8 years old now, but he's a very needy little animal.
How many cats do you have, Bill?
I have 2. I have this one, and we have an older female she's like 15 or 16.
Oh, wow.
She
Mhm.
likes humans, but only at a distance, so she'll sit like a foot away from you.
Mhm. That's
But
good.
this one just demands to be in your lap, on your neck, wherever he can be. Yes, huh? You want to be on the Board of Health? Probably not. That's all right.
We're
All
about
right,
to.
you got to go. Love you. See ya.
We're
Hit the
about to
road.
put 3 cats.
All right, the hour being 7:31, we'll call to order this special Board of Health meeting for the town of Walpole on December the 15th, 2020. We have only one item on our agenda, and that is the issue of the home for little wanderers. Melissa and/or
Sure. So I first would
whoever.
want to obviously welcome those on the call tonight.
Yeah.
Greg Corbo from KP Law, and we also have Chief Carmichael on the call as well.
All right. Greg, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here. And Chief Carmichael,
Good evening.
always good to have you available.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. Thanks.
So I don't know, Greg, did you want to maybe summarize why we called this meeting, and then we can kind of go from there, and then maybe Chief will want to chime in on some narrative with the recent situations up at the Home for Little Wanderers.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa, and through you, Mr. Chair, to the rest of the board. Good evening. It's under unfortunate circumstances that I'm here tonight. It was brought to my attention late last week that conditions at the Home for Little Wanderers at both of their Longview and Dugan House facilities have gotten extremely bad over the past few weeks, to the extent that the safety and health of not only the children who are residing there, but the staff and members of the police department, other first responders, and the public at large is really in serious jeopardy. And as a result, I met with the select board, the health agent, the chief, and other members of the police department to try to come up with a way of resolving this matter, so that these children are no longer exposed to the serious risk of harm that they're being exposed to now. And while Melissa can talk about their exposure to COVID-19, which is certainly a very serious issue, as we all know, these children are being exposed to dangers that go far above and beyond the dangers presented by COVID-19. And, in short summary, the instances of children running away and children harming themselves has grown exponentially over the past few weeks, to the point where, police responses to these facilities are happening on an almost daily basis. It's taking a increasing number of officers to try to contain these situations once they occur, and they're receiving little or no support from staff at the Home for Little Wanderers. And you know, the chief can get into some of the specific incidences that have been occurring and how they've put his officers in danger and have exposed them to threat of COVID-19, but also you know, the harm that these children are being exposed to. And you know, one of the incidents that was particularly striking to me what was an incident that occurred just recently, you know, in which a young girl of 16 years old was missing for 24 days. And you know, she was eventually found in a short-term rental in Boston, where she had been sexually abused by numerous men. And you know, it's an incident that, you know, in a nutshell can really sum up what's been going on there. And you know, these children are running away at a frequent pace. They're escaping from even the Dugan house, where the whole purpose of them being there is that they can be safely kept under quarantine, so that they can recover after having been exposed from COVID-19. And that's not happening. The children are being allowed to walk out the front door, to jump out of second story windows. And, you know, they're subsequently found in shorts and flip flops in, you know, sub freezing temperatures. And, you know, it's put a tremendous burden on the police department to have to essentially do the job that the employees at the Home for Little Wanderers are being paid to do. And at this point, it really has reached a significant and imminent public health crisis, to the point where something has to be done. And so, with the assistance of Chief Carmichael and Detective Kelleher and Melissa, you know, we put together a detailed letter to the State Department of Early Education, and are requesting that the licenses to operate the facilities in Walpole be immediately suspended, and that all of the children in their care be located to other suitable facilities until such time as these issues, you know, can be worked out, and the town can receive appropriate assurances that this lack of supervision and care, and frankly, it's abuse and neglect at this point, is not going to continue to happen. And so Melissa has a copy, and she can certainly provide it to all of you. But we submitted today to the state a very detailed description of what the conduct is that's going on there, how it violates their regulations, and why it constitutes grounds for immediate suspension of the license. We provided a copy of that letter to the governor, to your state legislative delegation, to the State Department of Public Health, as well as to other state public officials, in the hopes that we will garner enough attention. This will finally be taken seriously, and these children can receive the care that they're entitled to. You know, if we do not receive the response that we believe should be given here, then, you know, the next step, in my opinion, would be for the Board of Health, acting as a board and or through its agent, to exercise its authority to prevent nuisances and causes of sickness within its borders. And so if we do not receive a sufficient response from the state, then I will be recommending that, uh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. Okay, thank you. So I will be recommending that the board exercise its authority under Chapter 111 of the general laws and issue an order requiring that the facilities in Walpole shut down, and that the residents be relocated immediately in order to prevent a public nuisance and cause of sickness within the town of Walpole, i.e. the spread of COVID-19, as well as the danger to children and residents of the town. It's my hope that it's not going to come to that, but if it does, we wanted to bring you on board, keep you in the loop, and make sure that you are ready to move forward in the event that we need to, because this is a situation that simply cannot be allowed to continue the way that it's been going on. And so with that, I'll stop there and through you, Mr. Chair, open it up to Chief Carmichael or the health agent.
Well, thank you, Mr. Corbo. I appreciate the information, the update. Melissa did share a copy of the letter that was sent out. And it certainly was very, very detailed, very comprehensive, and laid out in chapter and verse exactly what the issues are. So I do appreciate your being here tonight to shed some light on that. Chief Carmichael, any comments?
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Thank you for having us tonight. First of all, I just want to say that the town of Walpole in general is very extremely invested in the Home for Little Wanderers and the safety and welfare of those children down there. These kids, I'll just give you a little background. There's 28 residents down there from about age 12 and above, 12 to 18. And as you know, these kids come from extremely difficult backgrounds. There's an immense need for resources down there. Certainly a level of supervision and a level of care for these kids. They are deemed high risk. And when I mean high risk, I'm not just talking about, the issues that they've faced in their history. It's also that the surrounding environment around the Home for Little Wanderers on Lincoln Road is, it's a very secluded section of town. There are swamps and wetlands surrounding most of it. There's a gun range, an active gun range to the west of it, which, whenever a kid runs, we need to cause for a ceasefire there. We have the MBTA commuter rail line that runs through on the east side of it. And so it's a secluded area. It's a very difficult environment for when kids do run away from a Home for Little Wanderers. And when they do, the law requires us to do certain things. Once the police are notified, we're obligated to respond, to take a report, and to immediately effect a search to locate them. And once we do that, that many times that takes the entire shift. And the other night, it took both shifts. And so what happens is when we're up there for 1, 2, 3 hours searching for a runaway child, the rest of the town is completely uncovered. And we've had situations recently where we had a drug overdose, we've had domestics, we had a motor vehicle crash, and we've had to pull our resources out from that area in our searches to answer these other calls. And the other risk associated is that the kids that are at the home, they're obviously teenagers, but many, like I said, difficult backgrounds, mental health issues, frequent runaways. There's a level of exploitation, child exploitation, sexual exploitation, human trafficking issues. There's a whole host of challenges there. And so I will say that the Walpole Police Department, we have 2 police liaisons, Officer Heather Van Ness and Officer George Bird, who spend a vast amount of their time partnering and engaging the kids down there, the staff, Department of Children and Families, Department of Early Education and Care. Anybody who's associated with them, we will have worked with them ad nauseum until we could, just to try and get the safety of these kids and the staff to assist us down there. And what it's turned into is that the staff is basically not empowered to make any decisions or do anything down there. And it's been handed over to the police to deal with. Many times we'll retrieve these kids, we'll bring them back like we did the other day. After several hours, these 3 kids jumped out of the 2nd floor window with no shoes, wearing shorts. They're gone for an hour. We finally locate them. We bring them back. And then within minutes, they're out the door again. And you know, when we ask like staff, like, you know, you have to keep the kids in there, you know, they get into a situation where they say, well, we can't do anything. You bring them back and they go right out again, and we're not allowed to, you know, physically restrain them or hold them here. And the crazy thing about that is that if the staff can't do that, who do you think it falls on? The police officers end up going there, and the kids get into physical confrontations. They assault the officers. We've had multiple officers that were spit in the face over the last couple of weeks. State troopers that were spit in the face from positive COVID kids, because the vast majority of the cottages right now are all positive COVID kids, as well as the staff. So the staff is all infected now as well. So we have this whole dynamic of the underlying issues with the kids that go there, their tendency to run and everything. And then you have this pandemic that we're dealing with, and the kids are still allowed to walk away, to run away, to flee, and actually get inside of a motor vehicle from, you know, some guy from Somerville or Boston picking them up and taking them away from their custody. And, you know, like, then we end up searching for them, like Greg said, for weeks, for months, for sometimes we haven't found some kids. So it's a huge problem. And I'm really, you know, we're always very open to try and work as best we can to engage the community, engage every parts of the town. But we're very frustrated here. Like the Home for Little Wanderers, it keeps me up at night, to be honest with you. Like, we are going to lose a kid. And like, is that what it's going to take? Is it going to take a tragedy for some kid to run away in their bare feet and run out into the woods and, you know, get hypothermia, or they're going to be picked up by some person, this 13-year-old girl, and God only knows where she's going to end up. I mean, we have tracked people to Boston, to Somerville, to Springfield, and as far away as Florida. And so I can't stress the significance of the problem. And honestly, like, you know, through the Board of Selectmen and through Town Administrator Jim Johnson, where we've met with them, we've done everything we can to make this better and make it safe for those kids and for the staff and for the neighbors. And we're just not there. We're not even close. Like, as many meetings as we have, it seems like it just keeps getting worse. And so I hope that explains it enough. If you see in the document, we did put specific incidents that we've just been dealing with in the past month. And I'm more than happy to touch on those if you want, but I'll leave that up to you, Chairman.
Can I ask a
All
couple
right.
questions?
I certainly appreciate your candor and the wealth of information that you've shared with us, Chief. If I understood Mr. Corbo correctly, you are attempting to get the state to take some action, but if that fails, you need some action from us.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So the state, through the State Department of Early Education and Childhood, has the jurisdiction to license the facility. And as the licensing authority for the facility, it also has the authority to suspend or revoke that license. And in fact, under the regulations, it can undertake an emergency suspension in which it closes the facility before having a hearing on the specific issues. And we certainly think that we've provided them with sufficient grounds for doing that. However, it's my opinion that the Board of Health has concurrent jurisdiction under Chapter 111 of the general laws, and in particular, sections 122 through 125, which authorizes the board to take action to abate public nuisances, sources of filth, and causes of sickness within its town. And so in this regard, you know, it's my opinion that the manner in which this facility is being run first and foremost constitutes a cause of sickness within the town. Because as Melissa can explain in a moment, almost everyone at these facilities is positive for COVID-19. And some of the children are going to Walpole Public Schools, and we don't know if school administration is aware of which children they are, and whether or not they're being properly isolated from the other children. They're getting out, they're interacting with police officers and other first responders, and as the chief mentioned, they're aware that they're infected, and what they're doing is they're using that infection as a weapon to try to keep the police away from them by spitting on them. And this exposes now your police officers to risk of infection, but it also exposes everyone else in the town to risk, because now every time an officer is exposed to infection, they have to quarantine. And that now reduces the number of resources that the town has to serve the rest of the community. But also, while these children are out, we don't know where they are. They could be going into other homes and businesses within the town. And it's been very well documented by this point how easily this sickness spreads. And so the way that this facility is being run clearly constitutes a cause of sickness within the town. And it also constitutes a public nuisance because, again, the town is required to divert its resources away from what it is customarily doing, which is aiding the community as a whole. And it's having to dedicate all of its resources to this one particular property or facility. And obviously it's an important function, but as the chief mentioned, if the entire police department is on call searching for a missing child, it's unable to then respond to a serious car accident, or maybe if first responders can't respond to a fire, or a domestic disturbance, might be able to be prevented if the police could respond in a more timely manner. And so, it really is a situation that is having negative impacts on the community as a whole, and therefore falls within the jurisdiction of the Board of Health to prevent it from becoming a public nuisance. So what my suggestion would be is that if we do not receive prompt and adequate response from the state in terms of licensing, that you do exercise your authority and you issue an immediate order to correct the nuisance by shutting down the facility and relocating the children until such time as it can be made safe. And that can be done in one of two ways. It can be done by a vote here tonight to authorize your health agent to take that action, or under Chapter 111, Section 30, the health agent actually has the authority to take that action herself, subject to your subsequent ratification. And so those are the two options that you have. But we think that this is a situation that requires prompt and immediate attention. And so I would urge you to either specifically confer that authorization on the agent, or to at least allow her to exercise the authority that she has in the event she needs to do so.
Okay. A technical question, sir. If we were to vote to authorize that, would that be held in abeyance until such time as it's determined that the state's not taking action, or would that take effect immediately?
So, I think it could take effect immediately, and then you can defer to the health agent, the chief, and myself, to come up with the timing as to exactly when, we think that it's necessary to take this action. That letter was delivered to state officials this afternoon. I think we need to give them at least a short period of time to do something before the town steps in, but not a lot of time. My suggestion is that if we do not have an adequate response by the end of the week, that the order be issued.
Okay.
And I would add, further, and I'm sorry, Mr. Brinkhurst, I'll stop in a moment and take your question through the chair. But just one last thing is that, with the expectation that the Home for Little Wanderers is not going to comply with your order, as they have not complied with your orders in the past, the next step after that would be to file an action against them in Superior Court and ask the Superior Court to enforce your order. And again, that's something that we would be looking to do, post haste and without any significant delay.
Appreciate that answer. Thank you, sir. Questions, comments from anybody?
Yeah.
Dr.
I-
Brinkhurst.
A couple of things. I gather the resident occupancy is something like 20 or 25. Resident,
28.
28. And who runs this?
Real quick, so it's 28 in the regular cottages, and then the Duggan House, which is across the street, which is being operated separately by DCF, has 6 beds. And that the Duggan House was basically designated as an area where kids under DCF custody who become COVID positive could go there in order to quarantine and be safe. So the 6 beds there, those 6 beds are usually filled. At least lately they have been. And when they did go in there, we were promised that there would be security, there'd be plenty of staff, 1-to-1 ratio, the building would be secure, but yet we've been to that Duggan House at least 3 or 4 times where kids have run away from that home. The other night, 3 kids jumped out a second floor window, and bare feet and wearing shorts, and they took off, and it took 2 shifts an hour to find them and be able to return them. So part of the problem is, like, we totally understand that there's a need for this, a major need for it, but it has to be done safely. And my concern at the time was that we already had issues with the Home for Little Wanderers and the cottages that exist and kids running away. Now we're adding another building with sick kids, and I knew that this wasn't going to be able to be successful because of the history. And what we predicted was exactly right.
So who runs this facility on a daily basis? Is it a private citizen? Is
So
it?
yeah, so the Department of Children and Families is the overseer. They're the guardians of the children who are in DCF custody, like wards of the state. So there are the kids that are at Longview, they're either under what's called Children Requiring Assistance, a CRA, which there's certain criteria that they meet and that they have to be in DCF custody. And then there's care and protection, which is something happened in this child's life, perhaps with their parents or their home situation, where that child had to be removed from that environment and placed in the custody of DCF and the protection of them and put at the Home for Little Wanderers. So DCF has custody. The Home for Little Wanderers is like the vendor. They're the people who have this nonprofit that they have these facilities where kids can go under DCF custody. And the licensing authority for the Home for Little Wanderers is the Department of Early Education and Care. So DC is the one who licenses them. The Home for Little Wanderers is the vendor, and DCF is basically the parent.
Right.
Good. That kind of explains that whole relationship.
Yeah.
Any other questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I have a concern. You mentioned, I'm not sure if it was Greg or John, something about the kids that being tested positive in attending Walpole Public Schools? I mean, can we identify who these children are and just, force them to be under quarantine? Because they're obviously exposing the other kids at school.
So I think that was a concern at first. They weren't very forthcoming as to what schools these children attended. Obviously, they can attend in-town schools as well as out-of-town schools. So there were certain cases that we were made aware by other health departments that weren't yet aware of this information. So again, that would be a responsibility of Home for Little Wanderers to make this information aware to those that it affects, because obviously it's deeply rooted and can potentially cause the spread of the virus, which should not be taking place if it's, within their controls.
Okay, so they're not all attending Walpole Public Schools. I mean, can we get a list of their names and
So we have worked with the school department on that, so we're aware of who goes to the Walpole schools. We made aware those other non-public schools in Walpole who attends there, even out of town schools. We've worked with the transportation department to make sure that they've stopped transportation to the facility until obviously these individuals have completed their quarantine period.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, but clearly it would, it certainly seems to me that this is an imminent danger to the town from a lot of perspectives, certainly from the COVID-19 perspective, but I find it very disturbing that one or two shifts of our police department have to be diverted to, and certainly I'm glad that they're searching for a lost child, but the town has a lot of territory to cover, and if we've got 4, 10, whatever it may be, police officers all out looking for a runaway child, clearly they're not available to deal with any of the other situations that might arise, be them medical or domestic or whatever, traffic, whatever's related. So I think clearly something needs to be done, particularly in light of the fact that this particular facility has been less than cooperative over the years. They've cropped up from time to time on our agenda over the years, as I recall. So exactly what motion is needed from us to handle this? And Mr. Corbo, perhaps you could assist us with that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would suggest a motion to the effect that the board authorize the health agent to issue a cease and desist order to the Home for Little Wanderers in accordance with the board's authority under Chapter 111, Sections 122 through 125 of the Massachusetts General Laws, requiring that the facility cease operations and relocate all children residing therein if it is deemed necessary by the health agent, the chief of police, and town council.
Okay,
Ask one more question.
absolutely, Doctor.
There are 30-some children involved here. The incidents that are described, I'm wondering, is this just a few bad eggs, or is this a pervasive behavior that's practiced by the majority of the patients or the kids that are staying there?
If I could speak on that, this is Carol Johnson. I volunteered at Longview Farm for over 3 years, and with their new change in organization, I initially started working with their books, with their library, and then completed that task and have not returned there. But in my time there, I only saw, as you sort of mentioned, a few bad eggs among all of them, which affected everyone. And so, but even if you only have 2 or 3 or 4, it certainly affects the whole facility. And look at how COVID has spread among them.
Mm.
And this, I feel that we very strongly that we need to make a motion to support Melissa to close that facility and relocate those kids.
Thank you. I appreciate that
If I could just add to
personal
that,
input there.
could I just add to that real quick?
Absolutely,
Carol.
Chief.
Thank you, Carol. I know you've done a lot of work down there and really appreciate that. So, you know, that I just want to say, like, us even being here tonight, like, completely breaks my heart. I know what time this is the time of year it is. We have developed very close relationships with these kids, especially our 2 liaisons that work down there all the time, who do an absolute phenomenal job of engaging these kids. Those kids really look up to those 2 officers. And when we say like bad apples, I don't, you know, I just want to be clear, like, these kids, they are coming from like the worst possible backgrounds as you can imagine, and not, so there is some behavioral issues up at the Home for Little Wanderers, but there's also a segment of kids who are also special needs, and you know, they suffer from a lot of different mental health issues, special needs issues, and but again, you know, they come from very, very difficult backgrounds. Like, we always try and look at it as, you know, these kids didn't ask to be there, and you know, they've experienced enough hardship already in their life, and to see them not be able to be properly cared for and protected, and the ability to just feel safe, like, really is what bothers me about this whole thing. You know, the calls, the Walpole, we probably go up there about 300 times per year. Those aren't all bad calls. Those are some community policing calls and everything else. But there's also over 100 incidents that we deal with. Either and probably 7. We're going to have probably between 80 and 100 runaways this year alone at the Home for Little Wanderers, and that's what's so concerning and troubling, that this revolving door of these kids who need adult supervision, and they need that safe place to be, but yet they're just like still exposed to all these dangers, especially when they walk outside. It's bad enough in the environment, but when they get in a motor vehicle and they drive from point A to somewhere else, God only knows what can happen there.
No, you're absolutely right, Chief. Absolutely right.
I
And
think-
Mr. Chair, through you, if I could just echo the chief's sentiment, because I don't want there to be any confusion here. No one is saying that this is a problem caused by the children. The problem is caused because the children do not have adequate and proper supervision and care. You know, these children, as the chief said, you know, they come from difficult backgrounds, and they are brought to this facility because they can't be kept safe in their own homes, and the purpose of having this facility is to keep them safe. And it's not their fault that they are not being kept safe. It is a responsibility of the operators and the staff of that facility to keep them safe, to prevent them from running away, to prevent them from getting into strangers' cars, to prevent them from being brought all over the state and the country. And so I just want to be very clear that nobody here is saying that these children are bad apples or that this is their fault. The fault here clearly lies on the operators of the Home for Little Wanderers.
Understood, sir.
But is it necessary to shut the whole facility down, or would special attention to the cares and needs of a half dozen of the residents go a long way toward ameliorating this problem? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, so sir, those are a lot of things that we try and work on. Our 2 police liaisons that work down there work very closely with the director down there, Rebecca Reed, who is phenomenal to work with. She does an incredible job down there. She does the best she can with the resources that she has. a lot of the problems many times stem from the policies of DCF. And really the fact that the staff, the people who are physically there to oversee the children, are not empowered and not given that authority to really do much other than just be there and watch. And that's where we run into all the problems. We've certainly, the home is currently right now talking about reducing the numbers, reducing the beds so they can try and get a hold of things. They've obviously lost a lot of staff from COVID, so that's having an impact. We do other things, like we try and identify at-risk kids as soon as we possibly can, like say it's mental health, or they're a threat to themselves or others, or even age. If they're under the age of 13, we can identify them, or if they run away a lot, we can identify them as at risk, and the home can actually put 1-to-1 ratio on them, one adult to one child, and try and maintain that kind of close supervision. But it's not working. It seems like these things we constantly talk about, but we're still having the same problems. This is the frustrating part of it.
Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I think it's time we make a decision and make a motion.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree with you, Carol. And I think we need to acknowledge the fact that, the Home for Little Wanderers is attempting to provide and unfortunately a much needed service to some of the most vulnerable of our citizens. I can't imagine what it must be like to be a child in a situation where either your safety in your own home is compromised, or other factors that might cause you to be put into a situation where you need to be under the care of the DCF, and by, I guess, through their agreements with the Home for Little Wanderers or other agencies to be separated from your family and your friends and your geography. But I do agree with you, Carol, that that care needs to be provided in a manner that ensures the safety not only of the children under their care, but the safety of the community as well. So I'll make a motion that the Board of Health grants to our health agent, Melissa Ranieri, the ability to issue a cease and desist order. And hopefully, Melissa, someone took some notes on Mr. Corbo's exact statement in terms of the chapter and verse for the state laws and so forth, but we'll cite all of that in terms of the justification for the authority and the execution of that, and that the actual issuance of that order will be at the discretion of the health department, the police department, and town council, should the application to the state to have the matter resolved not move forward in a timely manner. Does that pretty much cover it?
Sounds good. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Or-
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Sure.
because we're meeting remotely, you need to take a roll call vote.
Oh, okay. Then we'll take a roll call vote. I will vote aye. Dr. Brinkhurst?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Bissany?
Aye.
We have a roll call vote of 4-0-0. Is there anything further that we need to deal with tonight?
No, that is all.
All right.
Oh, actually, yes.
Oh,
that's-
yes, there is. So not pertaining to Home for Little Wanderers. So
Um, yeah.
So Mona does have a conflict in her schedule moving forward. So I know right now we're meeting on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month.
Mhm.
But we were wondering if the board would be open to meeting on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, starting in January.
No problem for me.
It's fine with me.
It's fine with me.
All right, we'll make that change.
Thank
Do you need
you.
a motion for that, or we just make that change?
We can make a motion just so we have it there. And then I'll also let Richard Biergard know as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that effective in January of 2021, the Board of Health will move its meetings from the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month to the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of each month. Those meetings will continue obviously to be remote on Zoom for the foreseeable future, but we'll be meeting on the 1st and 3rd.
Second,
Motion's made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, well, I guess we need to have a roll call vote on that too, Mr. Corbo?
Yes. All votes on remote meetings have to be by roll call.
Oh, okay. Then I'll vote aye. Dr. Brinkhurst,
what are we voting on?
the change in the schedule.
Oh, aye.
Mona,
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
All right, 400 on the change in the schedule. We'll meet then on what, 1st, 2nd,
The 5th.
the
Right.
5th of January. All right. Again, happy holidays to everyone. And we'll meet again on January the 5th. Thank you, Mr. Carver. Thank you, Chief Carmichael.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank
Our
you.
best. Bye-bye now.